My name is Mary, and I am 24 years old, but the woman I am today barely resembles the princess I was just 3 years ago. I was born into one of the wealthiest royal families in the Arabian Peninsula, a family whose name carries weight in palaces and parliaments across the Middle East. I grew up in Dubai, in a mansion that overlooked the Persian Gulf, where the turquoise waters stretched endlessly toward the horizon and the city's gleaming skyscrapers rose like monuments to human ambition. My childhood was one of unimaginable privilege, but beneath the surface of gold and silk, I was drowning in emptiness, searching for something I couldn't name, a truth I didn't know existed. Today, I want to share my story with you, not because I'm proud of where I came from, but because of where Jesus brought me. And I pray that if you're listening to this and you feel that same emptiness, that same quiet desperation I once felt, you'll hear his voice calling you too, just like he called me. I remember the first time I truly understood what it meant to be royalty. I was 7 years old, sitting in the back of our family's Rolls Royce as it glided through the streets of Dubai. My father, Sheikh Abdullah, sat beside me in his crisp white kandura, his face stern as always, his gold Rolex catching the sunlight that streamed through the tinted windows. We were on our way to a state function, and I was dressed in a tiny pink abaya with delicate embroidery along the sleeves, my hair hidden beneath a matching hijab even at that young age. I pressed my face against the window and watched the city pass by. The laborers in their dusty clothes working on construction sites under the brutal desert sun, their faces dark with exhaustion and sweat. I asked my father why those men looked so tired, and he barely glanced up from his phone. "They are not like us, Miriam," he said, using my birth name. "Allah has given us our position, and he has given them theirs. That is the natural order of things." I nodded, accepting his words as truth the way children do. But even then, something inside me stirred with discomfort, a small seed of doubt that would grow over the years into a forest of questions. Our home was a palace in every sense of the word. The entrance hall had floors of Italian marble so polished you could see your reflection, and a chandelier that hung from the ceiling like a frozen waterfall of crystals, each piece imported from Austria and assembled by craftsmen who spent months perfecting it. The walls were adorned with gold leaf and intricate Arabic calligraphy, verses from the Quran that declared the greatness of Allah and the blessings he had bestowed upon us. My bedroom was larger than most people's entire homes, with a 4-poster bed draped in silk, a balcony that overlooked the private beach where white sand met the Gulf's warm waters, and a closet filled with designer abayas and dresses from Paris and Milan. We had servants from the Philippines, India, and Indonesia, men and women who lived in small quarters behind the main house and whose names I was never encouraged to learn. They served us our meals, cleaned our rooms, and disappeared into the background of our lives like living furniture. My mother, Sheikha Layla, was my father's second wife, a beauty he had married for her family's political connections and her flawless reputation. She was elegant and cold, always perfectly composed in her black abaya and designer heels, her makeup immaculate, her jewelry worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. She rarely spoke to me with warmth, treating me instead like a doll to be dressed and displayed at family events, a reflection of her own status, rather than a daughter to be loved. We practiced Islam with the kind of rigorous devotion that was expected of a family of our standing. Every day began with the call to prayer echoing from the mosque near our home, the muezzin's voice drifting through the early morning air as the city stirred awake. I would rise before dawn for Fajr prayer, washing my hands and feet in the ritual ablution, the cool water a shock against my skin in the quiet darkness. I'd spread my prayer rug on the floor of my room, its green fabric soft under my knees, and I'd bow toward Mecca, reciting the words I'd memorized since I was old enough to speak. Allahu Akbar, God is great. But even as I spoke the words, even as I pressed my forehead to the ground in submission, I felt nothing. No connection, no peace, just the mechanical repetition of sounds that were supposed to bring me closer to Allah, but instead left me feeling more alone. During Ramadan, I would fast from sunrise to sunset, my stomach cramping with hunger as I sat through long school days, the other girls at my private academy whispering about boys and parties, while I tried to focus on my studies and ignore the gnawing emptiness inside me. We'd break our fast each evening with elaborate iftar meals, the dining table groaning under the weight of dishes prepared by our cook, dates and lamb and rice and sweet pastries that tasted like cardboard in my mouth, because all I could think about was whether this was all there was, whether this cycle of prayer and fasting and obedience would ever fill the void I felt growing inside me like a cancer. My father was a man of contradictions, and it was those contradictions that first made me question everything I'd been taught. In public, he was the picture of Islamic piety, a respected sheikh who funded mosques and Islamic schools, who spoke at conferences about the importance of modesty and morality, who enforced strict rules in our household about how women should dress and behave. My sisters and I were never allowed to leave the house without our abayas and hijabs, never permitted to speak to boys or attend mixed-gender events, constantly reminded that our reputation was tied to our family's honor and that any misstep would bring shame upon the name we carried. But behind closed doors, my father was a different man entirely. I was 14 when I first discovered his secret life, stumbling upon it by accident in a way that shattered my innocence forever. I had gone into his study looking for a book, pushing open the heavy wooden door to find the room empty, his laptop sitting open on the desk, the screen still glowing. I shouldn't have looked, but curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced at what was open on the screen. What I saw made my stomach turn. There were photos of my father in London, his arm around a blonde woman in a tight red dress, her hand on his chest, both of them laughing in what looked like a nightclub. Another photo showed him with a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light, his face flushed with alcohol. More images, each one a betrayal of everything he claimed to stand for, everything he demanded of us. I closed the laptop and ran to my room, my heart pounding, my mind racing with confusion and anger. How could he preach about haram and halal, about the evils of Western decadence, when he was indulging in those very things himself? How could he control every aspect of our lives while living a double life of his own? Over the following years, I learned more about my father's hypocrisy, and it poisoned my faith from the inside out. I overheard conversations between him and my uncles, their voices low as they laughed about their trips to Europe, the escorts they'd hired, the casinos where they'd gambled away thousands of dollars in a single night. I saw the way he treated the servants, speaking to them with contempt, refusing to pay them fair wages, threatening to have them deported if they complained. I watched him divorce my aunt, his first wife's sister, with a casual cruelty that left her devastated, pronouncing talaq 3 times in front of witnesses and casting her out of the family as if she were nothing. And through it all, he continued to pray 5 times a day, to quote the Quran, to present himself as a righteous man blessed by Allah. The hypocrisy was suffocating, and it made me question everything. If my father, a man who was supposed to be a pillar of Islam, could live such a lie, what did that say about the faith itself? If Allah truly saw everything as I'd been taught, why did he allow such injustice? Why did he bless men like my father with wealth and power while the servants who cleaned our toilets lived in poverty? These questions burned in my mind, but I had no one to ask, no one who would listen without condemning me for my doubts. I felt trapped in a prison of silk and gold, beautiful on the outside but suffocating on the inside, and I began to wonder if there was any escape. When I was 18, I received news that felt like a miracle, a full scholarship to study international business at New York University. I had applied in secret, knowing my father would never approve, using my mother's maiden name on the application to avoid any connection to our family. When the acceptance letter arrived, I hid it in my room for weeks, reading it over and over, the words blurring through my tears as I imagined a life beyond the palace walls, a life where I could think and question and breathe without my father's shadow hanging over me. Finally, I gathered the courage to tell him, walking into his study with the letter trembling in my hands. I expected him to rage, to forbid me from going, to lock me in my room until I abandoned this foolish dream. But instead, he surprised me. He looked at the letter, his expression unreadable, and then he nodded slowly. "This could be useful," he said, his voice cold and calculating. "You will go to New York, represent our family well, and when you return, you will marry the man I have chosen for you, a prince from Qatar whose family will strengthen our political alliances. You will study, you will learn, and then you will come home and fulfill your duty. Do you understand?" I nodded, relief flooding through me, even as dread settled in my stomach. I didn't care about the arranged marriage, didn't care about his plans for my future. All I cared about was getting out, and I would deal with the consequences later. He agreed to let me go on one condition, that I would be accompanied by Rashid, one of his most trusted advisors, a man in his 40s whose job would be to monitor my activities and report back to my father. I agreed to everything, signed whatever papers he put in front of me, played the role of the obedient daughter. But inside, I was already planning my escape. I arrived in New York City in August of 2022, stepping off the plane into a world that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. The air was thick with humidity, the city alive with noise and movement, car horns blaring, people rushing past on the sidewalks, everyone moving with a purpose and energy I'd never experienced in Dubai. Rashid had rented us an apartment in Manhattan, a luxury penthouse near Central Park, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city, the skyline stretching endlessly in every direction, a forest of steel and glass and ambition. For the first few weeks, I barely left the apartment, overwhelmed by the freedom and terrified of making a mistake. Rashid watched me constantly, his eyes following my every move, reminding me with his presence that my father's reach extended even here, thousands of miles from home. But slowly, I began to venture out, to explore this new world that had been opened to me. I started classes at NYU, walking through Washington Square Park to get to campus, the arch standing proud against the sky, street performers playing music, students sitting on benches with their books and laptops, everyone so free, so unapologetically themselves. I would sit in the back of lecture halls, my hijab still firmly in place, my abaya covering me from neck to ankle, and I would listen to professors talk about economics and philosophy and history, ideas that challenged everything I'd been taught, questions that made my mind spin with possibility. One afternoon in late September, I met someone who would change the trajectory of my life forever. Her name was Rachel, a Jewish-American girl with curly brown hair and warm hazel eyes, sitting next to me in my macroeconomics class. She smiled at me as she sat down, her energy bright and genuine, and she started talking to me like we were old friends, asking about my accent, where I was from, what I thought of New York. I was cautious at first, remembering Rashid's warnings about making friends, about getting too comfortable in this godless country. But Rachel's kindness was disarming, and before I knew it, we were meeting for coffee after class, walking through the city together, talking about everything and nothing. She never pushed me about my religion or my background, never made me feel judged for my hijab or my guardedness, and slowly, I began to trust her. One evening, she invited me to a gathering at her friend's apartment in Brooklyn, a small party with a dozen other students, music playing softly in the background, people laughing and talking, the atmosphere relaxed and warm. I told Rashid I was studying at the library, my first real lie to him, and I took the subway to Brooklyn, my heart racing with the thrill of rebellion. At the party, someone offered me a glass of wine, and I stared at it for a long moment, the deep red liquid catching the light, knowing that this was haram, that I was crossing a line I could never uncross. But I took it anyway, the glass cool in my hand, and I drank, the wine bitter and strange on my tongue, but also liberating, a small act of defiance against everything I'd been taught. That night was the beginning of my spiral, the first step down a path that would lead me to the brink of death and ultimately to Jesus. Over the following months, I began living a double life that would have horrified my father. During the day, I was the dutiful Muslim daughter, attending classes in my hijab, praying in my apartment when Rashid was watching. maintaining the facade of obedience. But at night, I became someone else entirely. I started going to clubs with Rachel and her friends, places where the music was so loud it drowned out the voices in my head, where strobe lights flashed and bodies pressed together on the dance floor, where I could lose myself in the chaos and forget who I was supposed to be. I drank more, graduating from wine to vodka to tequila, the alcohol burning away my inhibitions and filling the emptiness inside me with a temporary numbness that felt like relief. I tried marijuana for the first time in someone's dorm room, the smoke harsh in my lungs, the high making everything soft and distant, like I was watching my life through a foggy window. And then came cocaine, offered to me at a party in the West Village by a guy with sleek hair and expensive clothes, the white powder arranged in neat lines on a mirror. I hesitated for only a moment before leaning down and inhaling, the drug hitting my system like lightning, my heart racing, my mind suddenly sharp and confident, all my fears evaporating in an instant. I felt invincible, powerful, like I could do anything, be anyone. And for a few hours, the emptiness was gone, replaced by a manic energy that made me feel alive for the first time in my life. But the high never lasted, and when it wore off, the emptiness came back worse than before, a gaping void that demanded to be filled again and again and again. My grades began to slip, assignments turned in late or not at all, professors sending concerned emails that I deleted without reading. I stopped praying entirely, my prayer rug shoved to the back of my closet, the call to prayer that I could hear from a nearby mosque becoming just another sound in the city's endless noise. I took off my hijab when I went out at night, letting my long black hair fall free, feeling the night air on my neck and shoulders, a sensation that felt both terrifying and liberating. I started skipping classes, spending my days sleeping off hangovers, my curtains drawn against the sunlight, my phone buzzing with messages from Rashid that I ignored. I knew I was spiraling, knew I was destroying myself, but I couldn't stop. The drugs and alcohol had become the only things that made me feel anything other than despair, and I chased that feeling with a desperation that scared me. I started having thoughts that I'd never had before, dark thoughts that whispered in the quiet moments, telling me that I was worthless, that I had dishonored my family, that the world would be better off without me. I'd stand on my balcony late at night, looking down at the street 20 stories below, the cars passing like toys, the people like ants, and I'd wonder what it would feel like to step over the railing, to let go, to finally escape the prison of my own mind. I wrote notes in my journal, words scrawled in shaky handwriting, asking Allah why He had abandoned me, why He had made me this way, why nothing I did ever felt like enough. I need to pause my story for a moment and ask you something, because I know some of you listening to this right now are feeling exactly what I felt back then. Have you ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? Have you ever felt like you're living a lie, pretending to be someone you're not, because you're terrified of what will happen if people see the real you? Have you ever questioned the faith you were raised with? Those doubts creeping in during your prayers? That voice in your head whispering that maybe none of this is real? Maybe Allah doesn't hear you? Maybe you're alone in this universe with no one watching? No one caring? No one coming to save you? I remember that feeling so vividly. The loneliness that felt like drowning. The fear that paralyzed me. The certainty that I was the only person in the world carrying these forbidden thoughts. But if you're feeling this way right now, I want you to know something that took me years to understand. You are not alone. There are thousands of people watching this video who understand exactly what you're going through, who have walked this same dark path, who have felt the same crushing weight of religious obligation mixed with secret doubt, the same terror of disappointing your family, the same desperate hunger for something real, something true, something that actually fills the emptiness inside. Would you be brave enough to share just a small part of your journey in the comments? You don't have to use your real name. You don't have to reveal anything that would put you in danger. But if you could just type something simple, like "I understand this struggle," or "I'm questioning too," or even just "I'm here," your words might be exactly what someone else needs to feel less alone in their darkest moment. I know this takes courage. I know some of you might need to watch this video in private, might need to clear your browser history afterward, might need to pretend you were watching something else if someone asks. Your safety matters more than anything, and I would never ask you to risk that. But if you can, if it's safe for you, your comment might be the lifeline that pulls someone back from the edge. Now, let me tell you what happened next, because it's going to sound impossible, but I promise you, it's true. The night everything changed started like so many others. At a party in a loft in Soho, the space filled with people I barely knew, music pounding through speakers, the smell of marijuana and expensive perfume thick in the air. I had been drinking since early evening, vodka mixed with energy drinks, the combination making me feel wired and reckless. Someone offered me cocaine and I didn't hesitate, snorting line after line in the bathroom, my reflection in the mirror showing eyes that were too bright, pupils dilated, a stranger's face looking back at me. I stayed at the party until nearly 3 a.m, dancing and drinking and laughing with a manic energy that felt like it might tear me apart. When I finally left, stumbling into an Uber alone, I realized I had also taken pills, Xanax or Valium or something someone had given me. I couldn't even remember. The ride back to my apartment was a blur, the city lights streaking past the window, my head spinning, my heart racing so fast I thought it might explode. I made it into the elevator, my fingers fumbling with the buttons, and I barely got my door unlocked before I collapsed in the entryway, my legs giving out beneath me. I crawled to my bedroom, every movement taking enormous effort, my vision tunneling, dark spots appearing at the edges. I managed to pull myself onto my bed, and that's when I felt it. A coldness spreading through my chest, my heart stuttering, skipping beats, the rhythm all wrong. I tried to reach for my phone to call for help, but my arm wouldn't move, my whole body going numb, heavy, like I was sinking into the mattress, sinking through the floor, sinking into darkness. I whispered, "Allah, if you're real, if you've ever cared about me, please, help me." But there was no answer, just the sound of my own breathing getting slower, shallower, until even that stopped, and everything went black. I don't know how long I was dead. The doctors would later tell me my heart stopped for nearly 4 minutes, that I had overdosed on a combination of cocaine, alcohol, and benzodiazepines, that if my roommate hadn't come home early from her own night out and found me, if she hadn't called 911 immediately, I would have died in that apartment alone. But in those 4 minutes, I experienced something that I still struggle to put into words, something that changed everything I thought I knew about God and eternity and truth. When the darkness lifted, I found myself standing in a place that was both terrifying and familiar, a landscape I recognized from descriptions I'd heard my whole life. I was on a narrow bridge suspended over an abyss of fire, the heat rising up in waves that made the air shimmer, the roar of flames so loud it was like standing next to a jet engine. I knew immediately where I was. This was Az-Sirat, the bridge over Jahannam that every Muslim is taught about from childhood, the path that souls must cross on the day of judgment, thinner than a hair and sharper than a sword. I looked down and saw the hellfire below, flames leaping and writhing, and I could hear screaming, voices crying out in agony, pleading for mercy that would never come. The bridge stretched ahead of me, and I saw other souls trying to cross, some moving quickly with light feet, others struggling, slipping, falling into the inferno below with screams that echoed forever. I felt a terror so complete it was physical, my whole being shaking with the knowledge of where I was and what was about to happen. Then I saw them, the scales, massive golden scales that appeared before me, suspended in the air, waiting to weigh my deeds. On one side, I saw my good actions piling up, every prayer I'd ever prayed, every time I'd fasted during Ramadan, the charity I'd given, the times I'd been kind to others, the days I'd tried to be good, tried to follow the rules, tried to earn Allah's pleasure. But on the other side came my sins, and they were so much heavier, each one dropping onto the scale with a weight that made my heart sink. The drinking, the drugs, the lying, the parties, the times I'd taken off my hijab, the rebellion against my father, the secret life I'd lived, every moment of doubt, every question I'd asked, every time I'd turned away from Islam. The scales tipped against me, the weight of my failures crushing, undeniable, and I knew with absolute certainty that I was condemned. I tried to cry out, tried to plead my case, but my voice was swallowed by the roar of the flames. I watched as the bridge began to narrow beneath my feet, the edges crumbling, and I felt myself starting to slip, to fall, the heat from below reaching up to claim me. I thought of my mother, wondering if she would cry at my funeral, or if she would simply be relieved that I was no longer an embarrassment to the family. I thought of all the ways I'd failed, all the potential I'd wasted, and I felt a grief so deep it was like drowning. This was it. This was the end. I was going to spend eternity in torment, and I deserved it. Allah had judged me, and I had been found wanting. But then, something happened that I cannot explain, something that defied everything I'd been taught, everything I thought I knew about the afterlife. A light appeared in the distance, bright and pure, cutting through the darkness and smoke like a sunrise breaking over the desert. The roaring of the flames began to quiet, the heat starting to fade, replaced by a coolness that felt like water on burning skin. The light grew closer, and I saw a figure walking toward me across the bridge, moving with a confidence and peace that seemed impossible in this place of judgment and terror. He was dressed in a white robe that seemed to glow from within, and as he got closer, I could see his face, kind and strong, eyes full of a love so deep it made me want to weep. And then I saw his hands, and my breath caught in my throat. There were scars there, marks where something had pierced through the flesh, wounds that had healed but remained visible. I knew who he was, even though it made no sense, even though everything I'd been taught said this was impossible. It was Jesus, Isa, the prophet I'd been told was just a messenger, nothing more. But standing before me now, he was so much more than that, and I knew it in my bones, in my soul, in a way that transcended doctrine and dogma. He spoke, and his voice was like nothing I'd ever heard, gentle but powerful, carrying an authority that silenced every other sound, every doubt, every fear. "Miriam," he said, and hearing my name on his lips made tears stream down my face. "You have been seeking truth your whole life, searching for something real in a world of hypocrisy and lies. You have been drowning in emptiness, trying to fill it with things that could never satisfy, and you came to the very edge of death because you saw no other way out. But I am the way, Miriam. I am the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." I fell to my knees on the bridge, my whole body trembling, and I looked up at him, my voice breaking. "But I was taught that you were just a prophet, that Allah is the only God, that the Trinity is shirk, the unforgivable sin. I've failed every test, broken every rule. The scales have judged me, and I deserve what's coming. How can you save me?" Jesus knelt beside me, and his presence was so full of love it felt like being wrapped in light, like being held by someone who had known me my entire life, who had seen every secret sin and shameful moment and loved me anyway. "Those scales you saw, Miriam, they are not the true judgment. They represent the law, the weight of trying to earn your way to God through your own efforts. And under that system, every human being fails because no one is perfect. No one can measure up. That's why I came. That's why I died on a cross, bearing the weight of every sin, every failure, every moment of doubt and rebellion. I took your place, Miriam. I paid the price you could never pay. The judgment you fear has already fallen on me, and I defeated it. I rose from the dead so that you could have life, real life, eternal life, not through your deeds but through my grace." He reached out and took my hand, and when his scarred palm touched mine, everything changed. The bridge disappeared, the flames vanished, and suddenly we were standing in a place of such beauty it took my breath away. It was like a garden, but more alive than any garden on earth, with colors I'd never seen before, flowers that seemed to sing with joy, trees bearing fruit that glowed with an inner light. A river flowed through the center, its water crystal clear, and I could see what looked like streets of gold beyond, a city of light that shimmered in the distance. The air was filled with music, voices singing in harmony, and I felt a peace so complete, so perfect, that every anxiety I'd ever carried, every fear, every moment of emptiness, it all dissolved like mist in the morning sun. Jesus walked with me through this place, and he showed me things I still don't have words to describe. He showed me the throne of God, radiant with glory, surrounded by beings of light who bowed in worship. He showed me the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, 3 persons but one God, a unity of love so perfect and complete that all my questions about the Trinity melted away because I could feel it, I could see it, I could understand in a way that transcended human logic. He showed me people from every nation and language and time period, all gathered in worship, all saved by grace, all welcomed home, not because they had earned it, but because they had accepted the gift that Jesus offered. And then he showed me something that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. He showed me my life. I saw myself as a little girl, playing in the gardens of our palace in Dubai. My mother watching from a distance with an expression I'd always interpreted as coldness, but now recognized as sadness. A woman trapped in her own life of expectations and performance. I saw my father, and Jesus helped me understand that the hypocrisy I'd witnessed wasn't a failure of Islam, but a failure of the human heart. A man trying to maintain an image while serving his own desires. A pattern as old as humanity itself. I saw every moment of pain, every instance where I'd felt alone and unloved. And Jesus showed me that he had been there in every single one, watching, waiting, grieving with me, loving me even when I didn't know he existed. I saw the night I'd overdosed, saw my roommate finding me, saw the paramedics working on my lifeless body, saw the ER doctors shocking my heart back into rhythm. And Jesus said, "I wasn't ready to let you go, Miriam. I have plans for you, a purpose for your life that goes beyond what you can imagine." I saw 2 futures branching out before me. In one, I returned to my old life, continued down the path of destruction, and ended up dead within a year, my family ashamed, my potential wasted, my soul lost forever. In the other, I chose to follow Jesus, to accept his gift of salvation, and though the path was hard, though it would cost me everything I'd known, it led to life, real abundant life, filled with purpose and joy and the kind of freedom I'd been searching for all along. "I'm giving you a choice, Miriam," he said. "You can go back to the scales, to trying to earn your way to God, to the emptiness of religion without relationship, or you can come to me, accept my grace, and let me make you new. Which do you choose?" I didn't even hesitate. "I choose you," I said, my voice strong despite my tears. "I believe you are the Son of God, the only way to the Father. I believe you died for me and rose again. I don't want to try to save myself anymore. I want your grace. I want your life. I want to know you." Jesus smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds, light and warmth flooding over me. "Then you are mine, Miriam," he said. "You are forgiven. You are loved. You are made new. And I will never leave you." He placed his hand on my head, and I felt something shift inside me. Like a weight I'd been carrying my entire life was suddenly lifted, chains I didn't even know were there falling away, leaving me light, free, whole. The garden around us began to fade, and Jesus said, "I'm sending you back now. Your time on earth isn't finished. Go and tell others what you've seen, what you've learned. Be my light in the darkness. Don't be afraid of what you'll face. I'll be with you every step of the way." The last thing I saw was his face, still smiling, still full of that impossible love. And then everything went white, and I was gasping for air, my eyes flying open to see fluorescent hospital lights, to hear the beeping of monitors, to feel the oxygen mask on my face and the IV in my arm. I woke up in Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan, and the first person I saw was Rachel, sitting in a chair beside my bed, her face streaked with tears, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me wake up, she let out a sob and grabbed my hand, squeezing it so tightly it hurt. "Oh my God, Miriam, you're awake. You were dead. Your heart stopped. They brought you back, but you weren't breathing. You weren't responding, and I thought I'd lost you." I tried to speak, but my throat was raw from the breathing tube they'd removed. Rachel poured me some water, helped me take small sips, and slowly my voice came back. "I saw Jesus," I whispered, and Rachel's eyes went wide. "I died and I saw him. And he saved me, Rachel. He's real. He's the Son of God. Everything I was taught was wrong. He's the only way." Rachel started crying harder, but now they were tears of joy, and she told me that she had been praying for me for months, praying that I would find Jesus, that I would know his love. The doctors came in and examined me, amazed that I had survived, calling it a miracle, saying that with the amount of drugs in my system, I should have had permanent brain damage if I survived at all. But somehow, I was fine, completely whole, like I'd been protected by something they couldn't explain. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days, and during that time, I told Rachel everything, every detail of my experience, every word Jesus had spoken, every vision he'd shown me. And when I was finally discharged, I knew my life could never go back to what it was before. The first thing I did when I got back to my apartment was tell Rashid the truth. He was waiting for me, his face dark with anger, demanding to know where I'd been, why the hospital had called him, what I'd done to bring such shame on our family. I looked him in the eye and said, "I overdosed on drugs and alcohol. I almost died. But Jesus saved me, and I'm going to follow him now. I'm converting to Christianity." His face went from anger to shock to pure rage in seconds. He called my father immediately, putting him on speakerphone, and I heard my father's voice, cold and hard as steel. "You will renounce this insanity immediately," he said. "You will return to Islam, return to Dubai, and you will marry the man I have chosen for you. If you refuse, you are no longer my daughter. You will be cut off completely. Do you understand?" I felt fear grip my heart, but then I remembered Jesus' scarred hands, his promise to never leave me, and I found a courage I'd never had before. "I understand," I said, my voice steady, "and I choose Jesus." There was a long silence, and then my father spoke one last time. "You are dead to us," he said, and the line went dead. Rashid left that same day, taking with him the credit cards, the access to family accounts, the safety net I'd always relied on. I was alone in a foreign country with no money, no support, no family, but for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Rachel helped me find a small apartment in Queens, a tiny studio that was nothing like the luxury I'd known, with creaky floors and a radiator that clanged in the winter. But it was mine, paid for by the part-time job I got working at a bookstore near campus. I started attending Rachel's church, a small congregation in Brooklyn that met in a converted warehouse. The kind of place where everyone knew your name, where people greeted you with genuine warmth, where the worship was simple but heartfelt. The first time I walked in without my hijab, my hair uncovered, wearing jeans and a simple blouse, I felt vulnerable and exposed, but also lighter than I'd felt in years. I was baptized on a cold Sunday in November, in a baptismal pool at the front of the church, surrounded by my new brothers and sisters in Christ. And when the pastor lowered me under the water and raised me back up, I felt like I was truly being born again. The old Miriam drowning, the new Mary rising to new life. I chose the name Mary both as a symbol of my new identity and as a connection to the mother of Jesus, a woman who had said yes to God even when it cost her everything. I began studying the Bible with an hunger I'd never felt for the Quran, devouring the Gospels, reading about Jesus' life and teachings, weeping over the accounts of his crucifixion, rejoicing in the resurrection accounts, understanding for the first time what it meant to be saved by grace rather than works. I read Romans chapter 8, and the words felt like they were written directly to me. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And I wept because I finally understood that I didn't have to carry the weight of my failures anymore, that Jesus had carried it for me. The months that followed were both the hardest and the most beautiful of my life. I had no contact with my family, my calls and messages blocked, my existence erased from their lives as thoroughly as if I'd actually died that night in my apartment. I grieved that loss deeply, mourning the mother I'd never been close to, but had always hoped might one day understand me. The younger siblings who had looked up to me and would now be told I was a traitor and a disgrace. I prayed for them constantly, asking Jesus to reach them the way he'd reached me, to show them the truth, to set them free from the prison of performance and fear. I struggled financially, working 2 jobs to pay rent and buy groceries, wearing secondhand clothes and learning to cook cheap meals, living a life of simplicity that would have horrified the princess I used to be, but that I found strangely fulfilling. I faced discrimination and hatred from some in the Muslim community who learned about my conversion, receiving threatening messages online, being confronted in public places by people who called me a traitor and an apostate, once even being spat at on the subway by a woman who recognized me from a photo someone had shared. But through it all, I felt Jesus' presence with me, his peace that surpassed understanding, his strength when I felt weak, his love that never failed. The church became my new family, brothers and sisters who prayed with me, supported me, helped me when I struggled, celebrated with me when I succeeded. I joined a Bible study group for ex-Muslims, meeting others who had walked similar paths, who understood the unique challenges of leaving Islam for Christ, and their stories strengthened my faith and reminded me I wasn't alone. I'm here today because I want you to know that everything Jesus promised me has been true. It hasn't been easy, and I won't lie to you and say that following Christ means all your problems disappear, because they don't. I still struggle with loneliness, still miss my family, still face challenges that sometimes feel overwhelming. But the difference is that I'm not facing them alone anymore. I have a relationship with a God who actually knows me, who loves me not because of what I do, but because of who he is, who fills the emptiness I spent so many years trying to fill with money and status and drugs and parties. I have purpose now, meaning beyond just existing, beyond just trying to measure up to impossible standards. I'm currently finishing my degree at NYU, and I volunteer with an organization that helps Muslim women who are questioning their faith, providing them with resources and support and a safe space to explore their doubts. I'm learning to forgive my father, not because what he did was okay, but because Jesus forgave me for so much more, and I refuse to let bitterness poison the new life I've been given. And I'm praying every day for my family, believing that the same Jesus who found me in my darkness can find them in theirs. If this testimony has touched your heart in any way, I want to invite you to do something that could change your life. By subscribing to this channel, you're not just following content, you're joining a community of people who understand the unique journey of questioning Islam, of searching for truth, of finding freedom in Christ. Many of us have walked the same difficult path you're on right now, and we share these stories every week, testimonies of hope and transformation from people who found light in their darkest moments. We respect your journey completely, wherever you are in it. Whether you're just curious about Christianity, whether you're secretly reading the Bible and trying to understand, whether you're already convinced but afraid to take the next step, or whether you're a Christian who wants to understand what ex-Muslims go through so you can support them better, this space is for you. When you subscribe, you'll receive notifications every time we publish a new testimony, and you'll have access to resources that can help you on your journey. We understand that for some of you, even subscribing to a channel like this might come with risk, so please be wise about your safety. Use private browsing if you need to. Create a separate account if that helps. Protect yourself in whatever way is necessary. Your safety matters to us more than numbers or metrics. But if you can safely subscribe, if you can be part of this community, you'll find people who truly understand what you're going through, who won't judge you for your questions or your doubts, who will walk with you as you seek truth. Remember, the same Jesus who found me when I was dying on my bedroom floor, who showed me heaven and hell, who offered me grace when I deserved judgment, he's reaching out to you right now. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfect or have all the answers. You just have to be willing to seek truth wherever it leads. And Jesus promised that if you seek Him with all your heart, you will find Him. Subscribe below, and let's discover truth together. You're not alone in this journey. I want to close by sharing something that happened just 2 weeks ago. Something that reminded me that Jesus is still working, still moving, still answering prayers in ways I couldn't have imagined. I received a message on Instagram from an account I didn't recognize, and when I opened it, my hands started shaking. It was from my younger sister, Fatima, who was now 16, the same age I'd been when I first started questioning Islam. She had created a secret account that our father didn't know about, and she had found my testimony video through a friend at school. Her message was short, but it contained words I'd been praying to hear for 2 years. "Sister, I don't understand everything yet, but I've been having the same questions you had. I've been reading about Jesus in secret. I miss you. Can we talk?" I cried for an hour after reading those words, thanking Jesus for His faithfulness, for not giving up on my family, for using my story to reach the sister I thought I'd lost forever. Fatima and I have been messaging carefully, and I've been sharing with her about Jesus, about grace, about the freedom that comes from knowing you're loved unconditionally. I don't know where her journey will lead, and I'm praying for wisdom to guide her well. But I know that the same Jesus who saved me can save her too. That's why I share my story, not to attack Islam or to condemn Muslims, but to offer hope to those who are searching, to tell you that there is a God who loves you more than you can imagine, who died to set you free, who offers you not a set of rules to follow, but a relationship to enjoy. His name is Jesus, and He's waiting for you with open arms. Thank you for listening to my testimony. May God bless you and guide you into all truth.